How's everybody doing tonight? Jake, alcoholic.
Hi, Jake.
So I'll just start off telling a little bit about myself first, and how I ended up here. So I started drinking when I was probably 12 years old, and I heard someone else say this before, and it rung pretty true with me. I feel like the minute I took that first drink, it was like everything I ever felt like I needed in my life happened at that moment. And I feel like that was really my first spiritual awakening. And it just, as a kid, I always had a feeling that I didn't belong anywhere I went. I didn't belong with any people I met. I had friends, and I was actually I had friends, and I did good in school, and I was able to make friends young in elementary school, middle school, but once that first drink hit, I gave up on sports, and I really gave up on friends and relationships unless you were also trying to drink or get high. And so after that first drink, it slowly progressed to where I was 12, 13 years old, and I'm skipping school. I'm pouring vodka or liquor into water bottles, bringing them to middle school. I'm going in my mom's drawer, and I'm finding her prescriptions for Xanax. I'm taking those, start off selling those, and then I'm thinking, all right, well, if these high school kids, these cool older kids are buying these things, then there must be something to these things. And I try those, and that is what really, I think, ultimately took me in a hard downward spiral was the pills. And I chased that feeling of the pills very, very hard for a very long time. And at that time, I had no idea why I was, why when I didn't have, or when I had it, I felt like I could talk to people easier. I felt like I finally fit in and could relate to people. I felt like all my problems were just non-existent. And I didn't understand why when I didn't have those pills, I didn't feel that same way. So fast forward to, I'll say ninth grade. I'm in it pretty heavy now. My mom and dad had just went through a divorce, and I basically had this whole townhouse to myself, because my mom was staying with her boyfriend. She couldn't really even stand to be around me anymore, just because I was stealing everything I could from her. I was going in her purse, taking any money she had in there, even taking her debit card sometimes, stealing her car if she left the keys out, pawning her wedding rings and jewelry and stuff. And she basically she just couldn't deal with me. I'm coming slick out the mouth at her all the time. And this is the only person that, even cares to try to help me through these problems I'm going through these arrests I'm having. I'm getting in trouble. She's the only person that's there with me through it all, and I'm just so focused on getting these drugs and getting this money that I don't care about any of that. So she pretty much moved in with her boyfriend because she just couldn't be around me no more, and I understand now why. But back then I used it as a self-pity type thing, oh, even my own mom doesn't want to be around me, so I'm just going to keep going harder and getting higher and drinking more. And I'm throwing these big parties at the house, and the drug use just kept progressing. And around that time, I also got introduced. I met this girl, right? And we started dating, and we got introduced to fentanyl together. And I remember one night she, I had a party went on, whatever. After the party, it's just me and her now and a couple other close friends. And she had went and got some of the fentanyl from me that I didn't know she took it. She went to the bathroom, I guess did some. And I didn't know, it had been longer than what I think it should take someone to pee. And I go into the bathroom and she was just laid out on the floor. And I didn't know what to think at first because I was pretty new to the fentanyl still. I didn't really know if she was overdosing yet. And, I'm freaking out. I'm slapping her in the face. I'm pouring water on her. Nothing's bringing her back. And I had to call 911. And thankfully, they brought her back. But then, I was a minor, so they had to tell my mom about that. And once my mom found out about that, she flipped. And she sent me to my first rehab. And when I was in rehab, that time I went out to West Palm Beach for it. And she didn't, my mom didn't really know about rehab. So I can't blame her for it. But I didn't really know about it either. And I didn't know what I was really just going to get my mom off my back. So I didn't have to, so I could just get her off my back and just, keep doing what I wanted to do, which was get high. So I go to the rehab and these people are coming in there and talking to their story, trying to relate to us. And I'm just not grasping any of it. I'm really more worried about the girls in there, thinking I'm gonna find the love of my life in the rehab. I'm not worried about anything that's going on. And they're trying to tell me about all this trauma and this other stuff. And that stuff doesn't really help me. I need to be told about the solution to this alcoholism and addiction. So, I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm telling these therapists what I think they want to hear from me so I can move through this program and get back home. So that's what I do. I move through it pretty quick. I'm there for probably 60, 70 days, something like that. I come back and now my mom, she just had enough of me, so I go to move with my dad. And we did a whole geographical change. Now I'm in a different city. I went from Tampa to St. Pete. Now I'm in St. Pete, and I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm out here now. I got 60 days clean. I don't need to do any of this AA crap. I don't need to keep going to these meetings. I did probably like a week or two of meetings, and I'm like, I don't need to do any of that. I can just go back to the same stuff I'm doing. I could just smoke some weed and then I'll be all right. So I tried doing that. That lasted probably a week before I'm right back on the fentanyl. And I started drinking first. I said I could smoke some weed and drink and I'll be all right. And, my dad, he didn't know no better. He's like, look, as long as he's like, I'm going to show you that you can smoke weed and drink alcohol and life will be great just like that. He's like, that's all you got to do. And I'm like, all right. So I try that, and then, like I said, a week goes by, and I'm right back on the fentanyl. During that time, I thought, okay, well, maybe I can try to tighten my life up by like going to school for HVAC. Maybe if I just get a career, and not just be working in these fast food or restaurants, or that'll change my life. So I go to school for HVAC, and now I'm in school, working in a trap house, thinking that my life is on point because I'm in school and I'm gonna do this school and try to graduate and be a HVAC guy. I think that was probably like, because in my head, I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna do better, and I'm doing better because I'm in school. I'm in a different city. I'm not in the same place, but I still had myself with me, and I still had my messed up thinking with me. And that was probably like some of the darkest times I went through. I had the girl I was seeing, she, continued to overdose. She was overdosing like every other month probably at some point, and that couldn't make me stop. I was overdosing myself. I overdosed probably a total of 3 or 4 times. Couldn't make me stop. And the scariest part about that was, like, I would overdose, and when my friends or girlfriend would, like, Narcan me, I'd wake up, and if they didn't have the dope I was doing to give back to me, I would punch them. I would break things in their house. I would do, instead of being grateful that they just saved my life and brought me back, I'm over here attacking these people because I just want to get high. Sorry, kind of lost my train of thought. And then also around that time, I would say my best friend probably on this earth, it was like the one man I could say, knew everything about me, and I felt like really just loved me for me, and I didn't have to put on this mask that I was always putting on in front of these other people to try to be the way I thought they wanted me to be. He overdosed and passed away on March 15th of last year, and like, you would have thought, like, if anything, like, either him dying or my girl dying or, like, one of my parents dying, let's say, would get me sober. But even that, it was like I went harder over it. And I think that's when I really realized that I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice in this thing, like, if I was going to keep using or not. It was just, it's like I needed something other than me or my parents or a doctor or a therapist or something to get me to stop using. And so after he died, I think I just when you wake up in the morning, and the first thought on your mind when you wake up is like, fuck, I'm awake. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse. It's like, damn, I'm awake again. That's a pretty dark place to be in. And purposely trying to overdose because you're too much of a wimp to kill yourself, like, with a gun or whatever. It gets really dark. And I knew that if I wasn't gonna change and try to do something different, that I was gonna die. And the only reason really that I did this time, went back to rehab, was because I couldn't. My mom said to me one day, she was like, look, do you know how messed up it would be if me and your dad had to bury our 22-year-old son? And for some reason, that for some reason, just when she said that to me, that hit me pretty harder than her complaining to me about everything I've stole from her, harder than her complaining to me about how I'm destroying her life. And just hearing that from her, burying her 22-year-old son, that really hit me hard. And I feel like that is the reason I went back to rehab in March of this year. But it's like, once I got to rehab, this time something just turned out different for me, because I went to rehab March 16th of this year. And instantly, I feel like I just had a different head frame about it, and the way it was presented to me was different also. Like, I had some guys coming in that, like, some of them are in this room, that were coming into the rehab I was at, and just the way they were presenting the AA to me, like, the solution was just hitting me harder than the way these doctors were talking to me about trauma and childhood shit and all that. And I jumped in and I got a sponsor, and I actually did what these people told me to do. And I didn't care what it took, because I could see on their faces that, they were happy, and they could, like, say what they were saying without any, like, guilt or remorse or shame in what they did or said. And I just really wanted to feel that for once, because up until this point, my whole life was just scared, super fearful, super guilty, shameful, hated myself, and I just couldn't live like that no more. It was literally killing me. And step one, I think, when I really read the book this time and read about step one and worked the steps, I didn't really meant what it was to be powerless over having a choice whether I was going to drink or use again. I just thought it was like, okay, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, and there's nothing I can do about it. But I didn't understand that I have no choice. And I think, to me, that's like with the powerless part, like you're powerless over the choice on if you're going to use again or not. Because, like, that's just what I do, is I use again. So, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about me. And then I got a couple paragraphs from the book that I wanted to read, if that's all right. So it's going to be on XXVIII. So we're going to start at we believe, like the first paragraph. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence and their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. So that's that. That's like the way I look at it is like we have the obsession part, which is mental, but then we also have that craving, like, or that allergy. Whereas like once I snort one line of Fetty, like I can't stop. I can go on vacation, right? Go away for a couple days. I can buy 3 times the amount I think I would need to be all right, and I'm still gonna run out just because I can't stop. Once I start, I'm just going in with it, and I just have no. It's like I have no defense against consuming them drugs or that alcohol. Like it's just I can't control it. And then it says, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. So when I first read this paragraph or this chapter, I didn't know what frothy emotional appeal means. And so that is basically like frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. So like I can be told about, like my mom not wanting to bury me, for example, like her saying that, but that's not going to stop me from getting high the very next day. Like I can be told all this stuff from my family. I can be told that my best friend died. I can be told that my girl keeps overdosing, and I can see it, and it's not going to stop me. I gotta have, these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. I gotta hear it from another alcoholic that's, I can relate with, for me to believe what I'm being told about this. And then it says, if any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments, and the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. And then in my book, I have this next paragraph, I have it like parenthesized, and it's, to me, it's like the vicious cycle of alcoholism. And it's men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, which is sober, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope of his recovery. So that, that sounds exactly like me. I drink or I use, and then I do a bunch of dumb shit. I'll go out, rob somebody. I'll start fights with people. I'll steal, and then I'll wake up the next day, just full of guilt, shame, and remorse. Half the time, can't remember what I did or who I hurt this time, and then I'm like, all right, well, something's got to change this time. I can't keep doing this. I swear, I promise God I'm never going to drink again. God, just please help me not drink again, help me not use again. And I use the very next day, sometimes the same day, most of the time the same day. And I don't know that, I can't change this myself. I need something greater than myself to change this. And that is that is where I'm powerless. I can't change this myself, and I'll never be able to. And then I just have a couple more paragraphs I want to read on the unmanageability part that really like resonated with me about why my life is unmanageable. Even if I haven't, even if I'm not homeless yet, or I have a car, or it's not all about that. You could be, unmanageability is waking up wanting to kill yourself, waking up hating yourself, or just not wanting to go about your day. And I think this is like a pretty good example of that. So it's on page 60, and it is okay, I'll just read through it real quick. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. So that's me just wanting to control everything about my life, and just straight self-will. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. And trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants, and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? And I mean, that just, for me, that just rings so many bells. You know, my favorite part of this is when he said, "Is he not even in his best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony?" Like, you know, even if when I was using still, even if I try to do something good, you know, try to help somebody, try to look out for somebody, I'm doing it to satisfy myself or get something out of it myself. And to me, that is like that's a very unmanageable way to live life. It doesn't have to be all materialistic things that makes your life unmanageable, because I wasn't doing too bad, like, material wise, but that was only because of my parents. The part of my life that was the most unmanageable was my emotional and my mental state. And I feel like I didn't understand that till I read this stuff and did step one. And once I did, I think it changed a lot of my perspective on it. So yeah, thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.